Today I'm talking to Aziz Abu Sarah. Aziz, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Um, I came across your name because it might sound bizarre. Actually, I was watching the Olympic Games in Paris, but there was a break for a few minutes, so I switched over CNN, and there I saw you being interviewed together with what's his name?
Maoz Inon.
Yeah, Maoz Inon, and I thought this man I need to talk to. This is such an incredible story. So, yeah, just to give an introduction to our listeners and to our viewers, just tell us who is Aziz Abu Sarah.
Yeah, my name is Aziz. I'm from Jerusalem. I grew up in Jerusalem all my life. I'm Palestinian. I'm a peacemaker. This is what I've been doing for the last 24 years through different avenues, from media to entrepreneurship, travel to working in civil society to working a little bit on negotiations in Israel and Palestine and outside as well in other countries around the world.
Good, yeah, and the, what intrigued me is more as well, because I looked up, you also have a travel company, or I'm not sure if that's that right name to call it, but it's called MEJDI, I think, and I saw you also organize tours to Northern Ireland, so
Yeah.
another kind of hotspot, I suppose. Well, not as much nowadays, but I thought that's a good thing where we can connect. Because we're coming up to an anniversary of the last atrocity in Northern Ireland, which happened on August 15, 1998. And we're going to have the anniversary of that soon again. So,
And
no,
it's an important one because people often assume the moment you sign a peace agreement, everything goes perfect forever and that's it. And actually one of the worst atrocities that happened, one of the worst bombing that happened in Northern Ireland happened after the peace agreement was signed.
yeah, exactly. And people don't realize that. They think, well, the peace agreement is there, so that's it. But no, you're right. That's absolutely right. And that was actually the worst atrocity after
Yeah.
the so-called when peace was signed for. So yeah. Uh, One man there that really inspired me is Gordon Wilson. His daughter was killed in an Enniskillen bomb attack, and he said, "I don't want any repercussion. I forgive the killers," and that's where I kind of I want to link in because we mentioned Maoz Inon earlier. Uh, I mean, you lost your brother when you're quite young. I understand he was he died after injuries sustained when he was captured by the IDF, Israel Defense Force. But you then, on after 9th of October, you decided to reach out to Maoz Inon, who lost his parents. And why why did you do that? What moved you to reach out to him?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if you lost somebody in your family, and my case, like you mentioned, my brother was killed after being beaten up by Israeli soldiers, you understand that pain of losing a member of your family. You understand the anger that people get. You understand the loneliness that you have at that moment. No one really can fill in the void and the space around you. And so I, in some ways, understood more of what Maoz was going through, I would say, than even people around him. And people around him who haven't lost, people who are Israelis who haven't lost family members. And so I felt it was important for him to know that I stand with him and that I care about him and that I'm there to talk when he's ready to talk. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I'll get a response. Maoz isn't the only person I send this message to, and not everyone, responds. But he did, and we started working together immediately after, and that moment has defined our relationship and our friendship.
Yeah, and I was listening to your TED talk, and I was emotionally touched by them myself. And of course, as we mentioned, your brother was killed when you were 9. So how did you deal with that? It must have been very hard for you to comprehend something like that, especially that age.
Yeah, I was 9 years old when my brother was arrested, and he was arrested from home, and 10 when he was killed. And it's very hard. Yeah, when you're 10 years old, you don't know what to do. You're angry, you're bitter, and the only idea that seems relevant at the moment would be revenge, because if somebody kills your brother, then revenge seems the only path, and that you don't have actually any other choice. And it was only after 8 years that I realized that I do have a choice, when I went and studied Hebrew and I met Israelis and Jews for the first time, who were not soldiers, not in uniform, not on checkpoint. And we could talk about these things. We can have a normal conversation with each other, which, even though, again, I lived in East Jerusalem, only a few minutes away from me, there were Israelis, and still we never had a normal, I would say, conversation. And then I realized I do have a choice, that it is your choice to make your own decision, regardless of what the decision of the other is. And so I couldn't impact the past. I couldn't impact the person who killed my brother and make them stop from killing him. But I could impact the future and make sure other people don't go through that path, and do everything I can to overcome the reality where people have to be killed.
Yeah, and that's important because there's so, and again now there's so much hate today in the world, which I find very hard to comprehend, because at the end of the day we're all the same human beings. We all have the same skin. We all have the same. We all need the same air, oxygen. We all need to eat. So, but yeah, it's such a powerful message though, that you can forgive, or that you can move on, not going for the revenge, but more for reconciliation, I suppose. But I can understand that not everyone would have appreciated that path around you, or am I incorrect there?
Yeah, not everyone would appreciate it for a few reasons. One is fear, because I went through an experience. People around me didn't go through that experience. And so they couldn't understand my choice and why I was making those relationships, working with Israelis. But I would say it took some time, and then eventually my whole family have become supportive of that work, and sometimes involved in my work as well. So it's about patience, and it's about time, and then it's amazing what you're able to see. Also, you might lose some friends because of those choices, but you also gain a lot of new friends because of these choices. So it comes with a loss, and it comes with also a lot of gaining. I would say losing someone in your family also gives you a little bit of a leeway, where people don't feel that they can come and lecture you about what, or some people at least, about your choice,
Yeah.
because you've lost your brother. Who am I to come? I think this is the mindset a lot of people. Who am I to come and tell you what to do and how to respond to how your brother was killed?
Yeah,
So
and
that's the strength we have, both Maoz and I, because I'm sure some people think you both are crazy, but then most people won't dare say it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I often say it's not always bad to be a bit crazy. By the way, so sometimes that can be a good thing. But I don't see you as crazy. I think I see you both as courageous and brave men. Now, what
Well,
one thing? Yeah, go on.
people would tell you, if you're doing peace work, because I've worked in Afghanistan, I worked in Syria, I worked in Colombia, I've worked all over the world. And people, when you tell them you're peacemakers, sometimes would respond with like, "Oh yeah, how that's going," in a dissing way, into like saying, "Well, it's impossible, it's naive, so on. But I think of so many other jobs where people take long time to achieve a positive thing, like researchers in medicine, people who
Yeah.
are trying to find some kind of vaccine against cancer, unsuccessful so far. But if you meet one of those people, you never tell them you are naive. You never tell them, oh, you're wasting your life. This will never happen. You usually meet these people and say, thank you so much for what you do, because you are trying to create a change. And even if I don't see that change yet, even if you haven't been successful yet, I'm grateful you're trying. That's how we reached where we are as a humanities, is by trying to figure out solutions to problems. And sometimes it took few months, sometimes it took years, sometimes it took decades. But we don't think of people who are doing that work as naive, except when we come to peacemaking, where people feel comfortable saying, I don't see why you're even trying. And my response always, so what's the alternative? You think people doing peace are naive. What do you think about people who are pushing for war? What do you think about people who believe the language of bombs and killing is the only language, the language of violence? You think they the smart ones and we the naive ones? And to me, it makes no sense. I think the only naive ones are the ones who are using weapons to advance their political agenda. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter where. You're naive if you think violence is the way. And those of us who believe peace is the way are the ones who are sane, are the ones who are rational, are the ones who are not naive. That's my redefinition of, are we naive or not?
Yeah. I mean, speaking from this island here, of course, that's what happened in Northern Ireland. People finally came to that conclusion. It's not happening with violence, so we have to turn the page. We have to look at a different setup, and that's how. That's how
Yeah.
we got a relative peace in Northern Ireland. It's still not 100%, but that will take decades, I reckon, because there was always so much hate there. But once you start, you have to start somewhere, and I think that's good. You can't just say, "Well, I give up." If you give up, you might as well. What's the point of living that? But one thing that what I've noticed though, I I defend anyone who wants to protest, anyone who wants to voice an opinion. But I've noticed the last while. I was passing by in Limerick a couple of months ago, and that is pro-Palestine protest. I mean, people are free to do that. I mean, of course that they have the reasons, but in the background, I heard then just a few people saying, "Well, kill all the Jews" or "death to all the Jews." I was thinking, well, that's wrong. That is just so absolutely wrong. And I approached the politician who organized this march or this protest, and she just dismissed it. And I think that's what happened. That's what's happening currently in all of Middle East. People are being dismissed. They're not being listened to. It's a dangerous point. Do you come across that? Yeah, you actually said it there already. People call you naive for doing that, but on a broader scale, do you see that you're being dismissed, that your theories or that your ideas are being dismissed?
Yeah, but I want to start with answering the protest aspect, because I've been to some of those protests. I've
Yeah.
seen what's happening. And I would say, like you mentioned, majority of people I've encountered, vast majority of people I've encountered there, were people who were concerned, people who were horrified by the images they see on television, by the human loss, the toll of the human loss, and just so thousands, tens of thousands of people are killed. And I think it's important that people go out and tell their politicians what they feel. Now, those who use our cause to spread Jewish hate, I think should not be welcome to speak in our behalf. And I've been, as recently as probably yesterday, I think I posted something online about, you can't use anti-Semitism as pro-Palestinian. If you hate Jews, you you're not part of our movement. And I think vast majority of Palestinians, a vast majority of Arabs, of people who are even would define themselves as pro-Palestinian would agree with that. Is a movement for somebody's rights should not be built on hating someone else.
Exactly.
That's very important. But also, I always tell people in what I've been doing, the partners who I've found to be the most working for Palestinian rights and against occupation has been Jewish. In so much of my work, I've found the most who cared, and perhaps because obviously Israel is defining itself as a Jewish state. I think that's why you find so many Jews around the world who care so much about Palestinian rights and are horrified about the images they're seeing, horrified by the actions of the Israeli military. So it doesn't make sense. Even, I mean, from a moral point of view, anti-Semitism is evil, but even from a strategic point of view, it is absolutely stupid to become a movement against Jews, and I don't think it is. I think there are people who are trying to take advantage of the Palestinian cause to justify their hate to Jewish people, and we shouldn't allow those people in to define our movement. And I tell, there was a film last week, somebody sent it to me, and it was this guy goes to Ramallah and interviews people, and he edits it, obviously, and he puts together a whole thing about, see, every Palestinian was so happy on October 7th. And I sent usually to people another film back of a similar thing done with somebody going to Israelis and asking them about how they feel about Palestinians. And again, they're all celebrating what's happening to Palestinians, the killing of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. And I send it usually and say, these heavily edited videos, we should not take those as reality. Those are literally propaganda, hate-filled machines, and I will not listen, whether it's done about Israelis or about Palestinians. We really have to become much more careful of how we take our news and what we believe of what's put outside. 5-6 interviews, you don't know how many people this guy has interviewed before he found the 5 or 6 people who will say, yeah, I hate every Jewish person, or I hate every Muslim person.
Yeah.
It's so important. And right now, the rise of hate against Muslims and the rise of hate against Jews is evident to how people using our cause to spread hate, and we shouldn't allow that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, and I see it more and more on the. No, I hate using the term mainstream news, mainstream news of mainstream media, but I do see it that they use these little clips, these edited clips on news bulletins as well, and that's so wrong on so many levels, because I know you're a journalist, and I'm a bit of a journalist myself. One thing you always need to do is check your facts and check your sources. Where does it come from? That's missing a lot. And I think that's why this hatred gets a bit pushed up as well, pushed up the ladder, because people see they only see what they want to see. I think that's a pretty thing. No, the same thing. I had a discussion a couple of months ago about with a Dutchman. He said all these Islam terrorist attacks that happened in the Netherlands, and I broke it down for him from the 1970s to this year, and I said there was only one. It wasn't even a terrorist attack. It was just one Moroccan guy was this delusional. He killed Theo van Gogh, and that's the only one. So I don't know where you get that idea from. Or again, it's just you hear all these.
And you see it
claims,
this last week in the UK. Yeah, you see it this last week in the UK. A lot of rumors. People don't check. They get angry and they go out and we got to be so much, like you said, so much better at, you mentioned the Netherlands. We spread a lot of those negative news, but there's always so many exactly opposite news. And I remember being in Amsterdam and meeting a Syrian refugee who jumped in a freezing cold canal in like January to save a Dutch man from drowning, even though he was not a good swimmer himself. while other people were filming him. And he was the only person to jump in. And I always say, this is the story that should be the front page. This is the story that should be on television. This is the story of refugees that we should be told. But these stories are often ignored. And then what we highlight is like what you mentioned, one little thing, anything, even a rumor that goes on that spread hate, somehow it's like fire. It spreads so fast. And so our goal, part of what Maoz and I are doing, and a few of our partners, what we want to make sure happening is we amplify the voices of peacemakers. We make sure that our voices that are becoming more and more mainstream. And honestly, without that, we have no hope of creating change. We need to be the ones that people listen to, not somebody who spreads rumors and hate and fear. There is no, the Bible talks about how there is no love when you have fear, how you cannot really communicate. You cannot understand people if you're afraid of them, if you hate them, if you separated from them. Martin Luther King Jr. has a whole thing about like why people are separated. They separated because they fear each other, because they hate each other, because they cannot communicate with each other. That's the essence. And if we are so separated, if I want to learn about Judaism today, I don't go and read a book about Judaism written by a Muslim who doesn't really appreciate the Jewish faith. And if I want to learn about Islam, I don't go and learn about it from a Christian guy who thinks Muslims are all awful and evil or whatever and doesn't understand the Muslim faith. And so one of the things I keep pushing people again and again and again, saying, learn about each of these communities, but learn from them, not about them.
Yeah.
Communicate with the people, not about the people. It's really simple, but you think about it, and so many of us don't do it. I'll go to bookstores and I go to where the Muslim section is, and sometimes vast majority of the books, no Muslim authors. Like, I appreciate experts who are not Muslim, but there is something about reading about a community from the community.
Yeah. Because if it's not from the community, there's always a level of bias. I mean, that's just a human nature, and it's good that you touched on it on communities. But I think that's part of what MEJDI does. You travel. That's how you, because I know you travel to Colombia and to, well, as I said, Northern Ireland. It's not your regular holiday spots as such. So I think because if you travel, you broaden your horizon as well. You speak with other people. You get in touch with other cultures, and I think that's important. But yeah, fear. How do we fight it? Though that's the big question. Though, do you have any ideas?
Well, you mentioned travel, so let's start with travel.
Yeah.
I think of travel very differently, I think, than how a lot of people might think of travel. I think of travel as a state of mind. I think of travel as a challenge. Something fun, you do a lot of fun things when you travel, but also you challenge yourself intellectually. So if I'm coming to a place like Ireland or Northern Ireland and I don't learn about the history with the British Empire, with the United Kingdom right now, if I don't learn about the communities there, if I don't learn about people who've paid heavy price for the conflict there, about the future of this place, the innovation, the art, the culture, then have I really traveled?
Mm.
Just for scenery? I think travel that's based only on scenery is harmful, is
Yeah.
not good. If you travel and the only person you met on your trip is only your tour guide, that's how you create fear. I mean, before going to Colombia, my first time, I've been to Colombia now so many times. I remember watching a video, I think it was Vice, and it was about how scary it is to go out at night in Colombia because whatever you drink, you can ask for a glass of water, they'll put something in it, and you're going to be drugged, and you cannot trust anyone. And I'm a very seasoned traveler, and even for me, I was a little afraid. And then I got to Colombia, and my first couple of days, I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go out. And it took me a couple of days to get over the fear that video has set in my mind. And I have to tell you, the moment I did that and I got out and I met people, Colombia has become one of my absolute favorite places, which is why I work there. I've been back there many times. It's one of my absolutely most favorite places to visit in the world. And the people there were some of the most loving, helpful, supportive. Nobody that I met had tried to trick me. No, you know, and you obviously have to keep common sense and all of that, but not let fear, and fear that is spread so much in the media, define a whole country. And we do that too often. You go to Egypt today, people don't meet a one Egyptian. I see the itineraries to Egypt when I built my own itinerary for MEJDI Tours. I look at that tours to Egypt, and 99.9999% of it is Egyptology. You go from one Egyptology temple to another, from one Ramses II temple to another, and after a while you're like, I don't give a darn about Ramses II. Like, how many? None of us are gonna come back be experts on Egyptology, and yet Egypt, 100 million people, are the capital of the Arab culture, the capital of the Hanafi, probably Muslim world, are the capital of the movies and music and so on of the Arab world. And you go there, and most tourists don't even get one encounter with anyone, with the culture, with the art scene, with the people, with the food, with the farmers, with the calligraphers, with the, I can go on and on. There's so much with the innovation and recycling. You learn nothing except that Egypt was great 7,000, 5,000, 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how you overcome fear, is you can't trust what you just see in the news. You have to open yourself to news sources. You have to meet people. You don't need to travel far away to meet people. Even if you're in Dublin, I'm sure there's a synagogue there. I'm sure there's a mosque there. I'm sure there's a Baha'i temple there. You can go and meet those communities. And usually, in my experience, as somebody who's been to probably about half of the world's countries, if you show up, people get so excited because you want to learn, because you say, I care. I'm really interested in what you're doing. So when I came to Ireland the first time, I went to a Gaelic service, a church service, and I loved it. I didn't understand a thing. I didn't know what they were saying, but to me it was an experience. Go and visit those communities locally. If you're afraid to go to the countries first, visit them locally and overcome your fear, build relationships, build friendships.
Exactly, and it's often when you approach people, they when you show interest, that's what that people are encouraged by that as well. So yeah, absolutely. Now, when
Yep.
in for Ireland, the Gaelic, I can assure you, about 95% of the Irish wouldn't have, don't understand it either. So you wouldn't be the only one there. So
It
yeah,
was a
no,
beautiful service. It was a beautiful, beautiful service.
yeah, no, that's I appreciate that. No, I mean, we could go on for hours. It's fascinating, and maybe in the future we might just do one of these again. But I'm time bound as well. And Aziz, it was a pleasure talking to you, and keep up the good work. And with Maoz Inon, I hope to talk to him some stage as well, because when you talk about positive news, that's what happened to me when I switched over from the Olympic Games to CNN for a few minutes. I think it was on I forgot the show now. But it doesn't matter. You were on it. You were interviewed. I thought, wow, this is something else. And then I looked up your name. I saw the TED talk. So this is what we need to see in the news. Not always it's anti-Israel, anti-Palestine, hate, war. We need to see people that work together and that can work together and try to build a future. So that's good.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Thanks for doing this. Thanks. Bye.